Now that we've explored a couple different ways that Resolve handles color management, I want to show you the way that I like to work. So again, there are 3 different ways to make color management work. One is in the project settings, switching to YRGB color managed. The other way is using some version of ACES. And the third way is to use a color space transform in a node. This is actually how I prefer to do it. And the reason is this. One, it's really easy to turn off the color space transform just by clicking the node on or off, where there isn't really an easy way to do that in the project settings. If we do have this enabled, you can right-click on a clip and say bypass color management, and it's not a huge deal, but it's just a little bit less convenient since I'm usually working in the nodes anyway. The other thing I'm not really a fan of when it comes to setting your color management in the project settings is everything's kind of hidden. There's no way to really view or adjust your color transform. There's no real visual way to see what's happening before we do any color correction and what's happening after we do our color correction. It's all just kind of hidden and magical, which I don't really like. I want to be able to be aware of what's happening to the image from the very start to the very end. And when things are kind of hidden away from you like that, it's really easy to maybe forget something like, oh, well, this image actually doesn't have the color space set. We need to set it to this color space. And if something weird is happening, it's hard to kind of pinpoint where it is. It's just sort of like there's a lot of things behind the curtain when you use color management from the project settings. When we're talking about using nodes, I can tell at a glance that my image is being transformed and exactly where it happens in the image pipeline. I can do something before my transform and it has a certain effect. And I can view that either under my transform or not. And I can even switch this around if I want to do adjustments after my color transform, which is going to give me a very different result. And so there's just a lot more control with putting this color transform in a node. And the good news is I can actually have the best of both worlds here. I'll get rid of this pink push. I can take any node that I want and I can apply it to an entire timeline. All I have to do is go up to the upper part of my node graph, and there are a couple dots here. I can click on this second dot, and I have a whole separate node graph, which is applied after my corrections on every single clip. So if I hit Alt-S to add a serial node, and I make everything really, really yellow, that happens not only to this clip, but every single clip in the timeline. So if I have a bunch of footage that's all shot on the same camera, I can take something like my color space transform from my clip nodes, just grab this and hit Control-C, and then go over and make a new node in my timeline, select it and hit Control-V, and that's going to paste that color transform. I'll make sure to go here and get rid of this node for my clip, and I'll just reset all grades and nodes. And now I have my color transform applied after anything that I do here in the clip level. And so it is kind of hidden away, which is sometimes nice if things get complicated. But at any time, I can switch back over to my timeline nodes, and here it is, and I can see exactly what's happening. I can open up the effects and dial in any setting that I want to. And of course, I can put nodes before or after this color transform that will also be applied to every clip in the timeline. I can do this once on the timeline node, and everything in the project gets that same transform and looks pretty good. In fact, I've had a color space transform on this in the previous lessons, just so we didn't have to look at our nasty log footage. This is really a great way to work. And if you're wanting my advice, I would definitely recommend doing Resolve color management with a color space transform inside of a node.